Gene modification is an expensive but common practice. Expecting parents can provide their future children good looks, intelligence, but the ultra-wealthy Roger Camden convinces their family geneticist to apply a secret experimental gene mod called sleeplessness. As it turns out, sleep is actually a vestige of our animal past, like the appendix. It kept our animal ancestors tactically immobile so as not to come across predators when survival needs were already met and movement was no longer necessary. But with subtle gene mods, the need for sleep can be erased, allowing a person to be productive 24 hours a day, no longer a slave to exhaustion. And this is important to Roger Camden, a devout follower of Yagaism, a moral worldview created by Nancy Kress based on objectivism, where dignity is solely earned from personal achievement. But Roger wasn't expecting his wife to be carrying twins, or for only one of the two sisters to inherit the sleeplessness gene. The mother and father each take a contrasting role. The mother a naturalist, while the father is a geneticist. Each of them are terrible parents, and they can't accept the opposite daughter. But the twin sisters, Laisha and Alice, love each other more than anything despite this. They spend all the time they possibly can together until Alice gets sleepy, which is something that Laisha can't even comprehend. At night, Laisha is instead tutored, constantly learning novel concepts. Soon, the girls are not even going to the same school, as Laisha has twice the amount of time to accomplish her goals as Alice does. The extreme acceleration of Laisha's development makes Alice's normal development seem as that of a disabled person. And the effect this has on the sisters' relationship is a tragedy that Kress illustrates to a level of perfection, constantly stabbing at your emotions, but with relentless logic and realism. The tragedy is inherent. Nothing is played up. As more sleepless are born into the world, their advantage becomes a target for hatred. How can an athlete compete with someone who can train 24 hours a day? How can a university student expect to outperform someone who can study 24 hours a day without ever growing weary? This issue compounds when Laisha discovers that there is another distinct advantage of being sleepless. As it turns out, aging is inherently tied to the process of sleep. And without it, a new type of cellular regeneration is uncovered. What this means is that Laisha and all people like Laisha will never die of old age, and they will remain to appear as if they are 30 indefinitely. But this is not the case for her sister Alice, who no longer wants anything to do with Laisha. For the rest of the novel, we follow Laisha's journey through Harvard and then as a lawyer as she seeks to improve relations between sleepless and sleepers. The title of this novel comes from the moral question: what do the productive and responsible members of society owe to the beggars in Spain? It's important to recognize that while reading this, it's also about privilege and whether or not responsibility comes with it. And it does a damn fine job of taking these concepts and transposing them into speculative fiction. There is so much heart to this novel. It's transparent, it's direct, but in the way that Brandon Sanderson somehow forgot to write over the years. It is thoroughly accessible in its expertise. None of it is dumbed down, yet it is communicated so clearly that the words seem to beam off of the page. There is a voice here, but it does not require density to exist. This is a work by an astoundingly intelligent woman who, like Laisha, uses her intelligence to help those who have issues with understanding as opposed to alienating them. I love William Gibson's work, and it is genius in its own right, but this was very refreshing. This book is somewhat of a workup, which means that it was initially published as a shorter piece and then expanded upon. It's broken up into 4 distinct sections. This first section is the initial novella that Nancy Kress wrote that follows Alice and Laisha all the way up until adulthood, and it is a 10 out of 10 piece of work. The further sections extrapolate on the themes, world building, and character relationships sparked in the first. As we go farther into the story, the sleepers and the sleepless become more contrasted, more conflicted. They separate more and more in society until the sleepless are literally living on an orbital space station. Back on Earth, the sleepers have fallen into a Brave New World adjacent system where 80% of society no longer works and 20% of the society keeps everything going. And the 80% don't really have meaningful lives, they don't accomplish much, they don't contribute much. This is all really intriguing world building that further hammers in that theme of Beggars in Spain. But it's not annoying about it. You see, there is some serious philosophical consideration in this text, and Nancy Kress does not play favorites. This story is somewhat similar to Solaris in its transparent focus on dialectics, but it does so in a more engaging way that does not subvert the heart or the pacing of the narrative. I'm honestly still debating on whether or not I want to put this above Solaris. It's that good. There is a lot that works here. However, towards the end, I found things got a little bit strange. You really can't say that Kress pulls any punches. If anything, she threw too many of them. And the resolution between the two sisters, Leisha and Alice, at the end of the first book, the novella portion, is perfect. But the final resolution between them in the novel as a whole is rendered insubstantial by more recent plot threads. It really should have been the most significant point of the novel. That doesn't mean that we don't have things that make up for it in profound, really cool ways. How I learned about Nancy Kress in the first place is certainly worth mentioning. You see, I was watching a Wolfe interview, and the interviewer was asking the most awesome questions ever, and it turned out that she was an author. Please subscribe for more weekly content on my journey as an author, as well as book reviews on science fiction and fantasy. I'd like to end this off with one last quote from Leisha. "There are no permanent beggars in Spain, or anywhere else. The beggar you give $1 to today might change the world tomorrow, or become father to the man who will, or grandfather, or great-grandfather. There is no stable ecology of trade, as I thought once, when I was very young. There is no stable anything, much less stagnant anything, given enough time, and no non-productive anything either. Beggars are only gene lines, temporarily between communities."